Welcome back to Yehoshua's Daf Yomi Shiur, where the Daf continues daily until the complete revelation, appearance, and arrival of the Mashiach ben David, Messiah the son of David. Today we'll be looking at page 77b, Ayin Zayin Lamed Beis of Chullin, with the words Tumas Oichlin. Tumas Oichlin, Ditanya, Or Veshliya, Metamen Tumas Oichlin. Oir Shalokoi Veshliyo, Shechisha Leho, Metamen Tumas Oichlin. The Gemara elaborates with regard to the ritual impurity of food. It is, as it is taught in a Braita, the hide and the placenta of an animal which people do not typically eat cannot become impure with the ritual impurity of foods. But a hide that when cooked until it became edible and a placenta that one intended to eat can become impure with the impurity of foods. With regard to the ritual impurity of animal carcasses also, we already learned in a Braita. The verse states, and when a domesticated animal dies, of those that you eat, one who touches its carcass shall be impure until the evening. Leviticus 11:39. The verse indicates that one is rendered impure if he touches its carcass. But if not, if he touches its hide and not its bones, and not its sinews, not its horns, and not its hooves. Amar Rabba bar Rav Chana. This is interesting. Is this different than Rabba bar Chana? I wonder if when they recorded this, they didn't just mix up some names and just record them differently. Rabba bar Rav Chana. Is Rabba bar Chana. Are they the same person? That's a good question. And how could you know? Rabba bar Chana, the Gemashi is 674, that I know for sure. Bar and Rav are the same. Except maybe Chana is with Rabba bar Chana is with a hay at the end. And this is with an aleph at the end. Okay. So it's not 674. Rabba bar Chana is 674. I think Chana has a hay at the end. I have to check. I think so. Rabba bar Rav Chana, lo nitzcha ela she'asam tzike kedeo. And Rabba bar Rav Chana said, with regard to this brayta, this derivation is necessary for a case in which one prepared these parts of the animal. As a meat pudding, Zike kedera, in which they are cooked for an extended period and spices are added. Spices! One might have thought that they would be considered edible flesh and therefore impart the impurity of the carcass. The Braita therefore teaches that this is not so. Given these two braitot, why did Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha inquire about the status of the cooked hide of a donkey? The Gemara answers actually, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha was inquiring about the impurity of foods, and although the halacha was already taught in the first Braita, Rabbi Yitzchak Nafcha thought it is possible that the hide of a donkey is different, as it is repulsive and perhaps even when cooked, it is not regarded as food. Shil yesh yatzah amalerozo lo ishanu ela she'eini movlad. אבל יש מובלד, אין חוששים לבלד אחר. ורבי יוחנן אמר, בין אין אימו ולד, בין יש אימו ולד, חוששים לבלד אחר. The Mishnah states, with regard to a placenta, part of which emerged from the womb before the mother was slaughtered, its consumption is prohibited, as there is a concern that the head of the fetus might have emerged in that part of the placenta. Commenting on this Mishnah, Rabbi Lazar says the sages taught this halacha only in a case where there was no fetus found in the mother's womb. But if there was a fetus with its head and the majority of its body in the womb, one need not be concerned for the existence of another fetus that might have been in the placenta. Therefore, the consumption of the placenta is permitted. But Rabbi Yochanan says, whether there was no fetus found in the womb or whether there was a fetus, one needs to be concerned for the existence of another fetus in the placenta, and therefore its consumption is prohibited. According to the way the Gemara records the dispute, Rabbi Yochanan rules stringently and Rabbi Lazar rules leniently. The Gemara asks, is that so? But doesn't Rabbi say concerning this dispute? Rabbi Lazar said in explanation of the Mishnah that presents a stringency. Elohit marach yet maram Rabbi Lazar. Lo yishanu ela she'ena kishur bevlad. Aber kishur bevlad in choishishin bevlad achel. Rather, if it was stated like this. Rabbi Elazar says the ruling of the Mishnah is that the placenta is prohibited even if a fetus is found inside the womb. But the sages taught this only in a case where the placenta is not attached to the fetus found inside. Consequently, one must be concerned with the possibility that the placenta came from another fetus that already left the womb, and it is therefore prohibited. But if it is attached to the fetus found inside, there is no concern for the possibility that the placenta came from another fetus, and therefore is permitted. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, Anu ein lanu ela shilya belo vlad, aval yesh imo vlad, ben kishur bevlad, ben ein kishur bevlad, ein choishishin bevlad achel. V'hainu de'amar Rabbi Yirmiyah, dechumna amar Rabbi Elazar. And Rabbi Yochanan says, in my understanding of the Mishnah, we have the ruling that the placenta is prohibited only in a case where there is a placenta without any fetus being found. But if a fetus was found with it, then whether it is attached to the fetus, there is no concern for the existence of another fetus. The Gemara confirms that this understanding of the two opinions is in line with that which Rabbi Yirmiyah says. Rabbi Lazar said in explanation of the Mishnah that presents a stringency. Tanya kavas Rabbi Lozo, hamapelis min behemo chayav beoiv v'shil imohen b'zman shekshur bohen ein choishishin nivlad acher ein kshur bohen chaneni meitil oleach v'yashnei v'lodois. It is taught in a Braita in accordance with the opinion of Rabbi Elazar. The periods of purity and impurity observed by a woman after giving birth apply only after delivering a fetus with a human form. With regard to a woman who expels a fetus that has the form of a type of domesticated animal, undomesticated animal, or bird, and there is a placenta with them, the halacha is as follows. When the placenta is attached to them, there is no concern for the existence of another fetus that may have had a human form. But if the placenta is not attached to them, it is possible there was another fetus that had a human form, and so I must impose upon the woman the severity of two types of births, meaning both the longer period of impurity observed after delivering a female and the shorter period of purity observed after delivering a male. Shani oimer shemnimoch shapir shel shilya shemnimoch shilya shel shapir. The reason that I can say, perhaps the placenta that was found did not come from the fetus that was found, but from a fetus with a human form. To say this one must be concerned with the possibility that perhaps the fetus of the placenta was found and had a human form, and that fetus dissolved, and perhaps the placenta of the fetus that was found dissolved. My time Breder of Ami, Roy Behemis Lodo is Tava Kodesh Bibuchoiro. Umiet Behemos Davajene Kodesh Bibuchoiro. Umaini Nidba. The Mishnah states, if an animal that was giving birth to its firstborn expelled a placenta, one may cast it to the dogs. The Gemara asks, what is the reason for this ruling? Rabbi Ika, the son of Ami, said, the majority of domesticated animals give birth to something that can be consecrated with firstborn status, meaning an animal with the same form as its mother, but a minority of animals give birth to something that cannot be consecrated with firstborn status. And what is this? It is an animal that resembles the species other than that of its mother. And furthermore, with regard to all gestating animals, when they give birth, half of their offspring are male and half are female. Therefore, one can combine the minority of animals that resemble another species with half that are females, and arrive at the conclusion that male offspring that resemble their species, which are the only offspring that can be consecrated with firstborn status, are the minority. Accordingly, one does not need to be concerned that the placenta found was from an animal consecrated with the status of a firstborn. Uva mukdashin tikoper. My time. The continuation of the Mishnah states, but in the case of sacrificial animals, the placenta must be buried because it came from a fetus that is assumed to be sacred. It's assumed to have been sacred. The Gemara asks, what is the reason to assume this? The Gemara answers, it is because the majority of the offspring of sacrificial animals are fit to be sacred, as in contrast to firstborn animals, both female and male offspring of sacrificial animals must be sacred. Therefore, one must be concerned that the offspring and its placenta were sacred. The Mishnah adds, but one may neither bury it at an intersection, nor may one hang it on a tree, due to the prohibition against following the ways of the Amorite. The Gemara cites Abai and Rava, both who said anything that has an apparently effective medicinal purpose or any other logical reason behind it is not subject to the prohibition against following the ways of the Amorite. But if it does not have an apparently effective medicinal purpose, it is subject to the prohibition against following the ways of the Amorite. V'yatanya ilan shemashir peiroisav soikra b'sikra v'tane b'avonim v'shlomadane b'avonim yechi. But there are more challenges, but isn't it Tana Braita? If there is a tree that sheds its fruit prematurely, one may paint it with red paint and load it with stones, even though this was the practice of the Amorites. The Gemara explains the difficulty. Granted, it is permitted to load it with stones, as one does so for a logical reason, in order to, we'll find out. Here's Hashem next time.